almost 20 years ago, I went to a Jiffy Lube to get an oil change. And I had this old car. I had a 1987 Nissan Sentra, stick shift. Half the doors didn't work, half the windows didn't work. But you know what? It got me from A to B, and I wanted to take care of this car. So I go to this Jiffy Lube, and when I get there, the attendant, we start chatting, and I tell him that I need an oil change. And he sees that I'm a pretty young guy, and he asks me, hey, if you want an oil change for cheaper, just pay me some cash under the table, and we won't even record that you had an oil change. And I kind of thought about this for a second. On the one hand, it sounded like a good idea, like, hey, I'll save some money. If I give him a $20 bill, I'm going to save myself, 10, 20 bucks. But on the other hand, something in my spirit knew this wasn't a good idea. Like, he's stealing money from the company, and I'm stealing from the company. And so I kind of thought about it for a minute, and I gave into this scheme, if you will. I gave into it, and I said, okay, let's go ahead and do it. And, I tried to kind of justifying it in my mind of, maybe Jiffy Lube didn't really care if they did this once in a while. Maybe it wasn't a big deal if he's trying to help me out. So I'm trying to justify it in my mind. He does the oil change real quick. I hand him a 20, and I'm on my way. And as I'm driving away, there's like this slight satisfaction of, hey, that was a pretty cheap oil change. And on the other hand, I knew that I got away with something that I shouldn't have. So for the rest of the day, I just felt this anxiousness in my heart. And the next day, I felt this anxiousness in my heart. And this went on for a couple of days, and I just couldn't handle it anymore because I knew I had done something wrong. I knew that I didn't do what God had asked me to do, which would be to do what's noble, to do what's right, to follow the rules that were in place. So I ended up going to a different Jiffy Lube a few days later, and I looked like I probably had my tail between my legs, and I go to one of the managers in the store, and I kind of explain the situation, and he just looks at me like, one, why would you steal from our company like that? And two, why are you admitting to this? Like, why wouldn't you just... So I think he was confused, but I just had all this guilt, this anxiousness in my heart about not doing what was right. So I pay the full bill to them. So I lose out on extra $20 because I pay the full bill on this. And I think there was even a part of me that was expecting that the manager would be like, hey, thanks for being honest. And it wasn't like that at all. I think he was just kind of ticked off that I had done this. And so I left feeling maybe even a little more guilty. But on the other hand, I made things right. I admitted to my wrongdoing. And this passage in Philippians kind of reminds me of that story that I went through, because after that, I recognized in my own life, like, I have to do whatever I can within my power to choose what's right, to choose what's noble, to choose obedience to Jesus. Because if I claim to follow him and then I act contrary to that, I'm going to build up anxiousness in my life. And in Philippians, Paul says in chapter 4, he says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. So he encourages them, think about things that the world doesn't think about, the things that are noble, the things that are good, the things that are of God. Set your mind on these things. And then he says, whatever you have learned or received or heard or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. And so here's the thing. I did not put into practice what God had asked me to do in that moment. And his peace was not with me. And I didn't lose my salvation. It wasn't like this like astronomical thing, but it was the reality that I was not thinking about the things of God. I was thinking in my own selfish mind, how can I save some money? I'm stealing from a company. I didn't put into practice the example that Jesus and Paul had laid out for me. I put into practice my own selfishness. And the result out of that was that I don't have peace anymore. And through that moment, I began to realize the peace of God, you cannot put a price on the peace of God. When you truly experience the shalom of God in your life, no amount of money, no amount of experiences, nothing compares to having the peace of God. And I want to encourage you from this text in Philippians that you would set your mind, that we together as believers in Jesus, we would set our minds on the things of Christ. Our mindset would be the mindset of Christ. And our actions would follow in the example that Christ laid out before us. And that is the example of what's noble, what's pure, what's right, what's lovely. And so as we set our mind on that and our actions to the example of Jesus, God's peace will reign in our hearts. So learn from my example. Don't don't try and find some short end way to save a few bucks when you compromise on your integrity. The peace of God is worth more than any amount of money, any experience in this life. So I hope you have a wonderful day and you're encouraged by this, and just want to encourage you, keep thinking about Christ and acting like Christ, and you will experience the peace of God in your life.